What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Inking Out Loud. For today, episode 44, we're finally wrapping up our discussion of Lord of Chaos, the 6th volume in Robert Jordan's The Wheel of Time. I'm your host, Rob Santos. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Drew McCaffrey.
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
And we have returning special guest, the Don, Jared Livingston. Jared,
These
Jared,
just
what's
get
up,
better
buddy?
and better. I don't know what to do.
I just thought of another one today, actually. I almost wrote it down. I did write it down, but that's going to be for either next time we have you on or the time after that, because I have a few good ideas. But anyway, ladies and gents, servants and guardians, let's pass this off to Drew so that we can get a recap of what we just read. Drew, Lord of Chaos, finish it off for us, bud.
Yeah, so we didn't have a whole lot to read at the end of this because we did a longer segment for part 2. Mm-hmm. But what we did read here was pretty dang good. We have Perrin's arrival in Camelin and subsequent journey to Kyrien, chasing Rand. We have Matt and his brief time in Saladar before the choice is made to send Matt and Elaine and Nynaeve and Adelius and Van Dien and some of the Red Arms to Ebu Dar to search for the Bowl of the Winds. And most importantly, Rand meets with the Saladar embassy. Some sparks fly there because of a purported Aiel attack on one of the Aes Sedai. Bera and Karuna show up, giving their number, their little embassy 13 Aes Sedai in total, so Rand is not down with that, and he travels to Kyrien.
Not down with that.
In Kyrien, he meets with the Tower Embassy and is captured, because they also brought, well, more than 13 Aes Sedai. I believe the number was 15.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah. And so they shield him, capture him, stuff him in a chest, in a box, and head back to Tar Valon. But thanks to some sleuthing by Perrin and Sulin, everybody back in Kyrien figures out that Rand has been kidnapped. They give chase. Perrin summons the wolves. Taim shows up with the Ashaman, and we have the Battle of Dumai's Wells, which I think that's all I really need to say there.
Yeah, not much more is needed.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm getting chills talking about reading about it. So
Yeah, no, definitely. Oh my God, I have been waiting so long to record this podcast. We've had a few weeks in between while we've been dealing with personal stuff happening in our lives, and we finally got back down to it. I am so glad that we finally get the chance to talk about the Battle of Dumai's Wells, because it was so freaking cool. But like, before we dive too much into what exactly happened there, I still think we should stick to our regular structure. I do want to have a couple of talking points about Jordan's style, a couple of things that I've noticed that he pulled off that I actually really liked.
Okay.
So starting, I wanted to highlight this really expert narrative sort of switcheroo that Jordan pulls. Because as you just said, Drew, we had Rand, he's waiting in Kyrien for the Camelin Kyrien, sorry. For the Camelin and Rebel Tower, Aes Sedai to catch him up. And there, in Kyrien, his plans start coming together. And he's preparing to secure the loyalty of the Rebel Aes Sedai, and he's planning, I think, on using them in his strike on Samael in Ilion. We have Perrin's refusal to lead that army in Tyr, and then we have Matt's sudden, side quest. We have Rand meeting with Ruark, leading to him finally stop sending the spears south. And then we have the imminent arrival of the Saladar Aes Sedai, and it seems like Rand's schemes are slowly but inevitably coming to fruition. And then the pattern closes that proverbial right hand and then smacks him with the left one instead. It was so wonderfully done, and I wanted to point out that even 6 books in, and on arguably the largest and most epic installment yet, perhaps in the entire series, Jordan still doesn't fall into anything even remotely resembling predictability. Right?
Yeah, and so one of the things I wanted to talk about as far as his writing craft goes in this part of the book is foreshadowing. And obviously foreshadowing is something people are going to focus on a lot in the Wheel of Time, because we have things like the prophecies and Min's viewings and the various dreams from the dreamers and stuff like that. But that's a little bit different foreshadowing than what I'm getting at here.
Okay.
And that is this sort of thematic foreshadowing and how Rand's character arc, just in this small segment, and this is one of the reasons I wanted to like separate it out into the 3 chunks we did, is that Rand kicks off this segment meeting with the Saladar embassy, and then, you know, finding out about Bera and Karuna and all of this stuff, and he's like, okay, 13 Aes Sedai, way too dangerous, I'm out. And he goes to Cairhien, where he falls into a trap laid by 13 plus Aes Sedai. So this expectation, this threat, is presented by Robert Jordan with the 13 Aes Sedai, you know, something Rand cannot deal with. And it's set up, but when that promise is fulfilled, when that particular Chekhov's gun is taken down off the mantle in this book, it's from an unexpected direction. It's not from the direction that Robert Jordan made it seem it was going to come from, you know? So we have this sort of thematic foreshadowing, but it's not in the like really straightforward plot sense that we get with a lot of the like prophecies and dreams and things like that.
Definitely. Jared, what do you think, man?
I mean, I think some of that is reflected with Min too, where she sees some of this stuff coming, but she doesn't know when.
Yeah, that these ominous auras, definitely.
And so it's just hanging around, but we don't know when it's going to happen.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason why Rand was so quick to jump the gun and be like, I'm gonna head out, because there's 13 Aes Sedai in the city here, and Min is telling me that she sees an aura that I'm going to be hurt by women who can channel. You know, it looks like 2 and 2 are going to equal 4 here, and I guess they technically do, but this is not the 4 we're looking at, right? I thought it was really, really well done. I didn't quite appreciate, you know, how clever Jordan was being when I first read this book, and when I suppose when I second and third and up to my 10th and 20th times reading it. But lately I really have, you know, had the opportunity to dive in and dissect Jordan's style and take a closer look. And I can just say that this, like I said, I'm repeating myself now, but it was phenomenal. It was perfect. And he's a master of his craft.
Yeah. And the other Chekhov's gun, of course, that comes down off the mantle in this segment is the collective Ashaman. And it's interesting because a lot of people, you know, will start saying it's around this time in the series that things slow down, right? That the series starts getting a little bloated. We get all these side quests and things like that. But when we look at the pacing of these promises that Robert Jordan makes in Lord of Chaos, it's like the Ashaman are established in chapter 45? And then, like, 10 chapters later, boom, the Ashaman are in battle.
Yeah.
And this other, you know, threat with the 13 Aes Sedai is established in what was it, like, chapter 47, 48? And in, like, chapter 51 or 52, whatever, like, it happens, you know, Rand is taken. It's really fast-paced with some of these promises of plot development in the latter part of Lord of Chaos.
Yep.
And I think, you know, when we talk about the best endings to books in the Wheel of Time, lots of people are going to bring up Lord of Chaos because of the Battle of Dumai's Wells. And rightly so. It's a, you know, cinematic set piece. It's a crazy battle. It fulfills all of these promises. But it's also the events surrounding and leading up to Dumai's Wells that make the ending of this book so great and so powerful.
Agreed. Totally agreed. The last style discussion point that I had to write down here was about chapter 43 in particular. I think it was 43. It's called The Crown of Roses.
Yes.
And I thought it was, again, really interesting the way that Jordan continues to bring new characters into point of view. We immediately have Mirana, and she's talking to Varen, and she says that the others in their delegation have also been approaching the nobles of Camelin. And then we get exactly that. We have this switching between brief scenes where we have Karen Sedai. She's talking to Dylan. And she says that Elaine is, or she at least intimates that Elaine is going to have the throne of Andor. And we switch to Raphella, who's speaking to Lord Luon, and she's describing the benefits of Rand leaving the city. And then we have Elorian asking Demira Sedai, you know, who's going to have the Lion Throne? And Demira is totally not ominous. I cannot speak, boys and girls. This ominous and vague response of, the wheel weaves as the wheel wills. You know, I wanted
Right.
to say the way that Jordan structured this chapter or sequence, whatever, was superb, and I wanted to get your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I think this is a great point, and this actually did stand out to me too. I had forgotten this sort of staccato point of view shift at the end of that chapter, where, you know, there's because it's the inn, right? The Crown of Roses,
Yeah.
you know, but it's a dual meaning chapter title, which is something that I really appreciate, and it's something that, for instance, Gene Wolfe does a lot, where he'll have a chapter title that has an obvious meaning, and then if you dig a little deeper into the subtext, there's a secondary meaning that enriches. And in this, it's, you know, the name of the inn, obviously, but also they're talking about the Rose Crown.
Yeah.
They're talking about who is going to end up ruling Andor, and who is currently ruling Andor, in this dynamic going on around the Crown of Roses.
Yeah. So that's the end
The
of my
things
style
that you
points.
guys notice that I never notice.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, if it makes you feel any better, I didn't notice it until this read. I mean, I didn't notice how much I liked it, I should say, until this read.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Can I bring up something kind of series spoilery? I don't know.
For the entire
Sure,
Wheel of
yeah.
Time? Yeah, we're not going to, we're having gentle spoilers throughout this entire thing, unless we specify at the beginning of the episode that there's a guest on who hasn't read the rest of the series. Go ahead, dude.
One
Spoil
thing
away.
that I really enjoyed with a lot of these scenes with the Aes Sedai was knowing what we know about Varen now, and speculating
Yeah.
how she was approaching a lot of these issues at the time.
I suppose. Yeah, we get more context for it. We can look at it slightly differently now, knowing what we do now know about Varen.
And
Drew?
how she was likely trying to
sorry, go ahead.
manipulate events, I'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah, certainly. I think that's a really good observation.
Well, she does seem pretty adamant in that Alana bonding Rand is not quite as big of a deal for some reason as what are these new restrictions that he's placed on us, or are there any new restrictions?
Right.
Maybe a little out of character for an Aes Sedai, but you never know. This could just be a point of character, something, a quirk of her personality. But definitely
You wouldn't
knowing what
just-
we
you
know,
you
about
just
her.
wouldn't have thought much of it at the time, first
Yeah.
read through, but knowing
But
what you
now
know
you
now,
know.
it has a much bigger impact.
Now you're paying attention, eh? You're like, where's Waldo? Right?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. It's those
like
kind
this
of
is a
little
good-
things that make it so readable for me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, oh, certainly. But yeah, I think this is a good segue into characters,
Good.
since we're kind of talking about Varen's character here. Rob, is there anyone you want to kind of kick things off with?
Well, I mean, how can we kick things off with anybody else besides Rand al'Thor, I think? Or should we save it with Rand al'Thor for the end? What are you thinking?
No, let's start with Rand.
Let's start with Rand? Okay, cool. I will
Yeah.
say that I didn't like Rand's decision to flee Camelin immediately upon hearing about the 13 Aes Sedai. Like, yeah, okay, he's in danger. But, I mean, these were things I was able to rationally realize when I was like 12 years old, 13 years old reading this for the first time. A, he has an Angreal, right? B, he has other options besides fleeing. You know, I thought this, again, as a kid, I thought this made him look like such a wimp. I knew he wasn't actually a wimp, but I thought it would make him seem like one. Even if he stayed and they could overpower him, he could also, he could bluff it. And as crazy as, okay, bear with me on this one, as crazy as it sounds, what if he just kind of heard that news? Oh, there's 13 Aes Sedai in the city now. Oh, really? And he just decides to hop on over to the Black Tower and grab up about 25 of his boys. You know? What are the Aes Sedai going to do? He could just lie there and wait. They walk into the throne room and they're like, well, who are all these black-coated guys with the creepy smiles? Oh, it's no big. You know, they're just my homies. By all means, Marana. You were explaining where all these extra Aes Sedai came from. You know? I know would not have been a good idea. I
think-
know that. But it's funny to consider.
I think a lot of it with the Ashaman is he doesn't necessarily realize their utility and importance yet. I think, and especially just because, I've kind of read ahead a little bit right now into Crown of Swords and,
Same.
Seeing the bigger role that they take on and the bigger role that Tame is trying to push them on to Rand. And he's obviously much more likely to accept that role, given their effectiveness here.
Huh, maybe.
Yeah, and I think the paranoia that Rand shows in these chapters, and really over the course of this book, is important in pushing him to accept and utilize the Ashaman in greater roles. Because Rand, up to this point, hasn't ever really failed. You know, he hasn't had anything truly challenge him to the point where he feels like he needs help until he's captured and he has this newfound paranoia around Aes Sedai and around trusting people, and going forward he is always going to have his Ashaman with him, you know, his trusted group, you know, his hand-picked guys,
his posse
as well. And I think that in this segment of the book, specifically with Rand's character, it is all about the paranoia and the fear that he shows. I think in a lot of ways, Rand, in these last like 10, 12 chapters, whatever we covered, he's almost more running scared than he was in like Eye of the World and Great Hunt. He's so impulsive in these chapters, and he's so just like on tenterhooks about every little change that he can't anticipate, that, you know, like it really upsets his balance, and I think also, you know, opens the door for a little more of his madness to come through. It opens the door for Lews Therin to have much more of an impact in his, you know, interior landscape, things like that.
Oh, yeah. Jared, anything about Rand that you wanted to discuss today?
Nothing major right now.
Nothing that we haven't covered already, perhaps?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Who do we move on to now? Should we move on to Matt?
Yes.
Good. So, the color of trust in that whole sequence.
Oh.
What an excellent way to send off this chapter of Matt, like to kind of close this chapter of Matt's life and like begin his journey to Abu Dar and exactly where that's going to take him. Right?
Uh-huh.
He's officially passed the mark at this point in my favorite character in the series. Or maybe I just mean like most entertaining character in the series. Like to me, I guess they're kind of one and the same. They're synonymous. But it doesn't take much to please me, I guess. You know, seeing the Aes Sedai of Salidar, particularly those who have history with him enough to be embarrassed by it, just have to deal with the presence of Matrim Cawthon. Oh my god, it's just so much fun. He's absolutely the fly in their proverbial white pudding. He just he just hangs the ancient symbol of the Aes Sedai, like the dragon banner outside the stable, or the I think it was in a stable wherever he was staying.
Yeah,
gold.
in the stable loft.
Just comedy gold, man. What about you guys? Matt.
Well, yeah, I completely agree, and this chapter in particular is one of my favorites. Not only for the titular song, but his interactions with all of these different Aes Sedai during the, you know, the dancing and whatnot. And he asks Swan to dance, which is just a classic moment. And then Lyanna comes and sweeps him up, and he figures out, you know, and then she kisses him, and he's like, what?
She just throws herself on him. Oh yeah.
Like, and then of course Halima. This is an amusing moment, but also an important world-building magic moment, because this is our confirmation on the page right here that the medallion works on Saidin as well.
Yes.
And then, you know, and then the next day Matt is like fielding, like constantly rebuffing all of these Aes Sedai, trying to get him to, you know, to become their warder, you know, and Morel twice, you know, like, and all this, and like,
poor Matt.
It's just, it's really entertaining seeing him be discomfited by all this interaction with Aes Sedai, but on the flip side, of course, seeing all the Aes Sedai not knowing how to deal with him, handle him at all.
He's such a wild card. They can't predict anything he's gonna do. They can't react to anything he's gonna do, because it's just gonna egg him on. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Jared, Matt?
He's so out of place and uncomfortable, but by just being Matt, he thwarts any attempts by them to control him.
That's a good way. That's a good way to put it. Just by being Matt. Yeah.
But so I have another point about Matt to bring up here. It's a little later in the book. When they arrive in Abu Dar and he walks through the doors of the Wandering Woman and the dice stop.
Oh, and is that when he meets Satala Anan?
Yes,
Okay,
it is.
cool. Okay.
So this, I think, is like where the dice as a narrative device become a big thing.
Okay.
It's in Ebu Darin going forward that the dice are this omnipresent awareness that Matt has. Before this, like, I think they maybe only mentioned like once. You know, it does seem like something that Robert Jordan maybe had toyed around with, but in this book and with the Ebu Dar plotline, he really settled down on, yes, this is something I want to do with Matt.
Yeah, he found the voice for it.
Over
definitely.
the next 3-4 books, the dice are a major part of Matt's character. This rattling in the back of his head, and his own paranoia about what are they going to mean this time? Why are they stopping? Things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I wanted to say that I was obviously creeped out enough with one of the women offering to bond him being Halima's mistress. Halima's mistress. Yeah, it was Delana is her name?
yeah, Delana.
Yeah, Delana Sedai. And then we have this whole dance sequence with Halima, and just Matt enjoyed it so much. I was just goosebumps the whole time, but not in a good way. I was like, ugh, God.
Yeah, some real nightmare fuel
Yeah,
there.
and the last point on Matt's character that I have to discuss for today, I wanted to talk about his relationship with Oliver going forward, and how awesome and priceless that is, and in a weird way wholesome. And I know wholesome is a weird way to put it, because we already starting to see the way that the band is starting to, and I'll use air quotes, corrupt little Oliver. But we're starting to see the beginnings of the good-natured, like, soldier's life shaping him as well, and how he continues to baffle Matt, you know, flirting with all these women around him. Like, honestly, where does he learn that kind of thing?
Yeah.
You know? Entertaining.
It's typical Matt again, thinking that he's not a role model when he is.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yep. So that wraps up my points about Matt today.
Okay. My last kind of note about Matt is just the amusing little interaction he has in The Wandering Woman near the end with the Sharon and the Shanshan man.
Yeah. Who we don't yet know, you know, we don't have confirmation yet on page that it's a Shanshan. Wait, no, actually at the very end,
in the epilogue,
yeah, we get that brief point of view from that same guy, and he thinks about his interaction with that weird fellow in the hat, I think it was. Yeah, well, hold on, that's actually a good point.
Have you put together who that particular Shanshan man is?
Crap. I I remember hearing that point. That we're talking about an audiobook section I listened to a month ago, and I went, wait a second, but I don't remember that connection that I made. Go ahead.
So he's the Seeker Moore.
The Seeker who was interrogating Iginin?
Yep.
Okay.
In Tenchiko, and then he gets involved with like Bethamin and Kareed later on, and he sets off this whole thing, and he has his like blatantly untrue conspiracy theory. Yeah. Same dude.
Okay. Got you. So who are we moving on to next? Should we just wrap up our Taviran 3, talk about Perrin?
Sure. I don't have a whole lot to say about Perrin in this. I mean, other than like, you know, it's cool to have him like back and actually involved in the action again.
Right.
I will say, like, poor Perrin having to deal with Fail's family.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of what I have to talk about with Perrin today. I wanted to say, welcome back, Perrin, first off. It's been a little while. At least in this book, it's been, you know, we had no Perrin up to now. Like, especially for Jared, somebody who likes Perrin so much, I imagine it's been a real pleasure for you to finally get, you know, more page time with him, eh?
It is minus Fail.
Yeah, it is minus Fail. I liked how you put that. It was great to see Rand and Perrin finally reunited, even though they didn't really have much opportunity to chill out, as the kids used to call it in my day. But yeah, as you just said, Jared, with Fail, his chapters with Fail, every interaction they have is infuriating. It's a little more understandable for me on Fail's part, but it doesn't make this sequence any more enjoyable, like, at all.
It's just annoying. We're going through the end of this book in a huge climactic moment, and Perrin's sitting here worrying about how Fael's being a pain in the ass.
Yeah, really.
And how he now has to worry about having like 6 children.
Yeah.
Because Fael made that decision.
You know, I was honestly a little bored around here this time through. When I was reading about Berelain trying to corner Perrin for the 10th time, 12th time, 20th time, I couldn't help thinking, okay, like, we get it. Bitch is a hoe. All right, now let's move on with this so we can get back to Rand in the big picture. I swear, like, as a kid,
right.
I was 100% with Perrin, and I hated everyone else around him at this point for screwing him over. I hated Berelain, even though she's clearly so hot. I loathed Fael for refusing to understand what Perrin was trying to communicate, you know, during that whole situation, what was happening with Berelain. And this time around, I was actually getting ready to gear up and look at it from a different angle. Like I did in the Shadow Rising, for example. I think part 1 of the Shadow Rising, I had a little bit of bitching to do in there. But despite that bitching about Fael, mostly, I recall at least partly admitting that Perrin actually maybe did bungle things, and that he's being a bit willfully ignorant in that part. And I was getting ready to say a lot of the same thing this time around in Lord of Chaos, but I decided, you know what, stepping back and looking at it, no. This is what I want to know. Before we started recording today, I was getting my thoughts down. What if this situation was reversed? Let's gender bend this situation here, okay? Let's say it's our main character here is Min, and it's an older, authoritative male who keeps trying to seduce her, you know, to throw himself directly into the middle of her marriage, and to be waiting for her out of sight. This creepy guy waiting for her out of sight in the hallways, lying in ambush, stalking her all the time. It would be creepy as fuck.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like, it's somehow just because Berelain is so hot, it's somehow more acceptable. Or at least it makes, I don't know, Perrin partially culpable for refusing to confront her. That was Fael's big issue, obviously, is that Perrin wasn't going to engage with her on an emotional level, at least as raw as he was with Berelain. But I'm so ambivalent about that entire situation. What about you guys?
I think you have a pretty apt point there. There are, you know, more things we're going to be exploring later on in this series that show how Robert Jordan likes to play with, gender-based double standards.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I'm not particularly thrilled to engage with in the next book, but we will have to do so.
We will have to do so, yeah.
But I do think this is something Robert Jordan was doing on purpose with Berelain and Perrin, where he was trying to make another kind of statement the way he did with Matt and Tylan. So,
agreed. So, and honestly, I really didn't have anybody else as a character written down to talk about. Oh, I had one point about Gawain here, and I just wanted to see that was pretty much my point. You could actually summarize my entire point by just writing 3 letters in italics. Ugh. No, like, this is the point in the series where I just actively begin to dislike Gawain. His obsession with Rand and Rand's supposed, and I will highlight that freaking word, supposed murder of his mother, regardless as to what anybody says or whomever it comes from. He has decided that his mother is dead, and he has decided that Rand has killed her, and he clearly must be evil. No questions asked. And he's such an arrogant, ignorant, hot-headed fool.
How old is he?
My age? No, not my age. He's a couple years younger. He's like 24, I think, at this point.
Oh, that is a great question.
So we can't attribute this to teenage idiocy?
No, this is definitely not teenage BS.
He's a couple years... He's probably about 20. I believe he's like Rand's age.
He's a couple years younger than Galad. Right?
He's a couple years older than Elaine.
Oh, Elaine's like
Elaine
17 at this point.
Is 18.
18. I thought he was still older than that. I seem to remember saying, or somebody saying, somewhere in this series that he's a couple of years younger than Galad. And Galad's like 27 at this point, right?
Okay, I'm gonna... So, Galad is 20 at this point.
What?
Maybe 19. He was born in 979 NE, and Lord of Chaos is taking place in 999
So Gawain is 18 at this? Cannot be 18 at this point.
19 or 20.
So Elaine 18, Gawain 19, Galad 20.
No.
Sorry, did I miss?
No. Gawain was born in 979 NE.
Okay, you said Galad.
No, you said Galad.
No,
Oh
you
my
did.
God.
We have it. I'm pretty sure we have it recorded. You said Galad. Sorry, dude.
All right.
Well, I'm like 80% sure. Not 100.
Gawain was born
Okay.
in 979 NE.
Got you. Okay. So Galad's 20
yeah.
at this point. Hey, it could be.
No, Gawain is 20.
I meant to say Gawain. Oh my God! You got me screwing up Gawain and Galad now. Okay, we're done.
You're the one who's been
Actually,
saying Galad this
You know
whole
what?
time.
If I'm not mistaken, there was actually an episode recently in the Wheel of Time where I meant to say Gawain and I said Galad. It was Egwene dreaming about Gawain, and I accidentally said Galad. I think that was just on the last episode, perhaps, maybe 2 episodes ago.
Galad was born 9 years before Gawain.
Damn.
So Galad is like 28 or 29.
Okay, see, I was closer, definitely a lot closer to Galad.
If you have
really,
questions,
there.
reference the encyclopedia.
Yeah, we call him Drew McCaffrey. So, yeah.
I don't know. I was just
yes,
thinking like
Galad.
maybe he was super
Gawain.
young
Fuck.
and we can attribute Gawain being an idiot to that kind of thing. But
If Gawain's 20, then that's not too old. It could be a lot of young adult nonsense.
to be fair, he has been a victim of being left in the dark by both sides of Aes Sedai at this point. That is not. That doesn't
But he
make what he's
chooses-
doing right.
He chooses to handle it in the worst possible way.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's all that needs to be said about that. Any other character points that you guys want to discuss?
Not particularly. I mean, I could say a couple of brief things about the Wonder Girls, but this portion of the book really isn't about
See,
them.
I have a blank spot here for Nynaeve and a blank spot for Elaine and a blank spot for Min because I really couldn't think of anything to discuss that was really important about those 3 characters at this point.
Yeah, I
in
mean,
this book.
like, Elaine and Nynaeve, all they really do in this portion is, like, try to study Matt's Terangriel and then talk to Tylan for a little bit. Like, they don't do a whole lot. And similarly, Min, she's sort of a passenger with Rand in this whole segment.
Yeah.
And then, like, we don't even, like, get any Egwene, hardly. We have, like, a couple of scenes with her, and then she's in the epilogue when they find out that Maggedion is gone, and she releases Logain.
Ah, yeah. That tough
So-
decision that she had to make there, yeah.
Yeah. But one thing, that I think we have to discuss, it's not necessarily character-based, is the Battle of Dumai's Wells.
Okay.
And I want to discuss this, like, on a couple of levels. One, I want to talk about, like, the reader's experience, like, the entertainment factor with this. Because, as I mentioned, this is one of the most bombastic endings to any book I've ever read. This is one of the truly famous battles in all of fantasy. I mean, if you go on, like, Reddit fantasy and ask for, like, people's top 5 battles in fantasy books, I guarantee you Dumai's Wells is going to be on most of those. Things like that. This is a monumental scene in the landscape of fantasy fiction. It's so crazy. There's so much action. It's such a groundbreaking moment in the series because this is, with the advent of the Ashaman on the battlefield, it's something that we've, as readers, whether we recognize it or not, have been waiting 6 books and almost 2 million words to have happen. And it and it happens, and boy, does it not disappoint.
Would you say this would you say this is our first large scale confrontation between multiple channelers? Like large scale, between dozens or more?
Oh, absolutely.
This has got to be. I can't think of anything else. I mean,
For
we have
sure.
lots more of the power being thrown around, like, for example, at the end of The Shadow Rising. But we still haven't had, like, this big multi-person confrontation between multiple factions wielding both the male and the female half of the true sword.
In the context of a battle with armies.
Yeah. The only one power battles we've seen before this have been, like, Rand versus the Forsaken type things.
Yeah.
One-on-one showdowns, maybe, like, 2-on-1 sort of things. But this is, as you said, the first large-scale one-power battle we see. And as Jared noted, it's also involving run-of-the-mill soldiers which makes it that much more
Terrifying.
Yeah, really.
That's the same word I went
because
for, yeah.
seeing just how helpless normal people are in the face of channelers like the Ashaman. People who, as Rand noted and Taim, carried out, were made into weapons.
Yes.
Like the Aes Sedai, they're not battle trained. Even the Green Aja, they're not battle trained. The Ashaman are battle trained. Their whole purpose, at least at this point, as it's become skewed by Taim, is to destroy.
Yeah.
And it's also a little scary. There's a lot of things when you dig down like a level. There are a lot of things that are really scary in the last part of this, and the Ashaman in this, as I noted, 10, 12 chapters in a span of 10 or 12 chapters, from Rand saying you're going to be guardians to Dumai's Wells, when Taim's like, no, you're not guardians, you are pure weapons. Taim has already twisted the purpose of the Ashaman.
No, not at all. Rand told him, he said, push them hard, I need weapons, turn them into weapons.
Yes,
He made that very clear.
Yeah, well, so he does tell him, I need them to be weapons, but the whole purpose of the Ashaman, the name means guardian.
Yeah.
Rand wants them to be a shield against the shadow.
Mm-hmm.
And of course they're going to have to fight the shadow. But what Taim turns them into are inhuman weapons, not human guardians. And that's what's unsettling about it. That hundreds of these guys will just blindly be like, okay, I'm going to go horrifically slaughter thousands of people and not even bat an eye at it. Like, we see people like Rand even, sickened by this. None of the Ashaman are bothered. The Ashaman aren't, turning around and throwing up in their,
a little weird, because presumably they haven't slaughtered people before this. I imagine.
I think that's a point toward how Taim is treating them and training them.
I suppose.
Which makes it the more unsettling. And that's what I'm talking about, digging down a layer.
And removing that
because
kind of
when you
human
just read
level,
it,
turning them into
when
mindless
you
killing
just read
machines.
it as an entertainment thing, it's like, oh, cool, look at how badass they are. And then when you consider the emotional and mental toll that this should be taking on a real human being here, it becomes horrifying.
Yeah. I mean, even the Aiel break before this, and the Aiel don't break for shit.
Yeah.
And we're talking full on sprint, retreat, and panic break.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. What else? Anything? Oh, there's one thing about Dumai's Wells that I want to discuss. Well, a confession I have to make, actually. I feel bad saying this, but I did not realize that the name Dumai's Wells was actually, until this read, was actually about 3 broken, dilapidated, ancient wells that are actually there. They're physical objects that are there on this field of battle. I didn't realize that. I thought it was the name of a town that this took place in, even though I realized it was emptiness all around it. For the longest time, I'm like, what are these, what is Dumai's Wells? I didn't realize there are actually physical objects that were there, present on scene.
Yeah, they're right by where Rand was.
Yeah,
in
where
the chest.
Rand kabooms the box and he escapes, and they discuss the 3 ancient wells, and I was like, oh my god! I just somehow 50 reads before this, every time, right over my head. I found it this time though.
One of the things that I'm kind of thinking about reading this, along with what Drew is saying, is how the Ashaman are not bound by 3 oaths.
Definitely not. That they are not. That's terrifying.
It is really scary what Rand has created and how quickly it's getting out of his control. Where there are no checks on the Ashaman, basically.
Yeah.
There are no checks on them.
Yeah, and
they're not beholden to a pre-existing power structure the way Aes Sedai are. Aes Sedai, even if they didn't have the 3 oaths, and this goes back to why they made the 3 oaths in the first place, is the Aes Sedai want socio-political power, and they have to be beholden to these oaths and behave themselves, or else they will lose that power. The Ashaman don't care about that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no, this is something that, very briefly talking about spoilers for later in the series again, Andral Genhald tells Pivara later in A Memory of Light, he makes a specific point. He says, you may have centuries of experience combined on your side, but every single man in here, from the time he learned to channel to where he is now, has learned nothing except how to be a mindless killing machine, how to be a weapon. And the caveat there, the cherry on the proverbial cake on the icing, most of them are insane. To some extent or other.
Yeah.
Like, even if they had 3 O's, how do you think they would be able to hold to these things being completely unaware and unable to control themselves?
Right.
It's terrifying.
Yeah. It is. This is kind of where I was going with, like, the thrust of my, like, digging down a level with this whole last segment. There are so many things that on the surface just seem like cool plot points or things like that, but when you start really interrogating them, you realize just how unsettling, just how scary all of these events at the end of Lord of Chaos are, and how thematically apt they are for the title of the book and for the opening and closing bookend scenes to this, with the Dark One,
Yeah.
This let the Lord of Chaos rule and demand Dread showing up. Have I not done well? All of this where
The Dark One's laughter.
it's.
Man.
It's scary how
If I were to write a black metal
how
album,
much-
it would probably be called The Dark One's Laughter. It's just so freaking chilling. Heebie-jeebies, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah.
It's funny, you kind of like realize this whole time maybe the voice in Rand's head, Luz Theron, has a point.
Oh, Luz
Right.
Theron makes a few good points, I think.
Yeah.
As terrifying as that is also to consider. Yeah. I have a few miscellaneous thoughts I want to get out of the way, but I want to ask first, Drew, do you have any lore things you want to get out of the way?
So I have 2 small ones.
Sweet.
The first of which is going back to oh my gosh, and now I'm blanking on her name.
I'll help you. Who is she? What does she do?
Deira, the Aes Sedai, not Deira. Oh my gosh, the Aes Sedai who gets stabbed by the Aiel. Begins with a D.
Demira? Yeah, Demira.
like-
Yeah, she got stabbed, yeah.
Yeah. So those were not actually Aiel.
What? Hold back the F up.
What?
Those were not Aiel?
No, they were not Aiel. So, and the giveaway here is when they stab her and she's like, lying on the ground bleeding out, one of them says, tell the other witches to stay away from Althor.
Oh, they would have said the
word
Kara card.
witches.
Or
And the
witches.
word witches
Yeah.
is the clue for who these guys are. And the other thing is the guy has like dark eyes above the veil.
Oh my god.
They are Padden Fane's white cloaks.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, are they Children of the Light? But I didn't see the Padden
They
Fane coming
are.
out of nowhere. Holy
Yeah.
crap.
Yeah.
Okay, see, I thought what made them have to be Aiel is the fact that they stabbed her and she thought she was going to die, but it turned out that she clung to life long enough because they somehow missed all of her vital organs. And I thought, well, that's something that only an Aiel, somebody very, very practiced with a spear, can do.
When do we find out they're specifically Thanes?
We don't, other than the fact that Fane has been in Camelin this whole time and has tried to mess with Rand.
So we're
the whole
supposed to
time.
infer.
There
that
are
they
no
Thanes.
white cloaks in Camelin other than Fane's white cloaks at this point in time.
Okay. Anything else lore wise? You said you had a couple.
Yeah.
Was that was one, right?
And the other is the Golem, and I just want to tie this back to the Great Hunt and this theory that I have about Barthanes, because
The theory you
Herod
presented
Fell
it
is-
as fact.
No, I mean, there's nothing. Well,
Sorry, I didn't mean to
talking about,
interrupt you.
That the Golem killed Barthanes?
Yeah, you said the first time we saw the Golem, even though we didn't have it named, the first time it appeared in the
I didn't
narrative.
say that was fact. No, I didn't say that was fact.
Okay.
It's a theory, but it's, I think, a very strong theory, and all the circumstantial evidence here, because this again takes place in Barthanes' manor.
Yeah.
And Herod Fell is killed in the same manner as Barthanes.
Yeah.
torn limb from limb.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to kind of reiterate that theory that I think it was, in fact, the Golem who killed Barthanes.
Oh, yeah. It's
back in the Great Hunt.
I totally agree with that, yeah. It has to have been the Golem,
Whoa.
What other creature has the strength to do that? Right?
Right. Well, I mean, like, presumably a Murdral or something like that, but...
Even then.
But Murdral generally don't tear people limb from limb when they kill them. They just,
I'm
stab
sure
them,
they have more inventive ways.
Or torture them to death.
Yeah. Yeah.
What did Herod what did Fell say? Like, you have to...
Know when to hold him, know when to fold him? No, sorry, go ahead.
You have to tear down before you rebuild.
Oh yeah,
or something
belief in
like
order
that?
gives strength. Must clear rubble before you can rebuild. Do not bring girl next time too pretty. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds right. Sorry, I just laugh at the last bit.
And that's where we get the where Rand gets the knowledge that the seals must be broken before the bore can be resealed more completely.
I guess that actually brings up one minor question I totally forgot to write down to ask you, Drew. Belief and order give strength. What is the significance of that, and why would Fell waste time writing those words along with, must clear rubble before you can rebuild? What is the significance of that?
Because as chaos grows in the world, the Dark Ones gain strength and can break the seals more quickly.
Okay, so the Dark
Chaos in the world is what weakens the seals.
The Dark One's corruption of, like, the hope of mankind, perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, like, it gets really metaphysical here, obviously, but because there's the whole, like, the land is tied to the land is one with the dragon and all of this stuff, and so the idea of, like, chaos being sown throughout the land is going to impact Rand negatively, and it's going to impact the seals because the Dark One gets stronger.
And as we see later in the series, I think it was Egwene that mentions this near the end. She says that, I think it was Egwene, that merely killing everybody is not what the Dark One aims to do. He aims to break everybody, to destroy their hope. So, yeah, pretty metaphysical there, I suppose. I can see that being what Fell was trying to get across, especially considering, the magnitude of what he was saying in that moment. He's talking about the seals on the Dark One's prison, and he just writes it on a little strip of paper like this big. I love the I don't know, the nonchalance with which Jordan decides to do something like that. It's not like this message given like by word of mouth in a moment of despair. It's not like this big shining banner, this proclamation. It's this little torn away kind of, I don't know, back of his mind slip of paper that he decides to send to Rand that has so much significance for the rest of this series. I thought that was really, really cool.
Yeah. So, did you have any further questions?
I have one question and like 4 or 5 just like miscellaneous notes about things that happened in this part of the book. My question, though, Drew, and this is about Aiel culture, so I don't know how confident you are in answering this particular one. This is kind of obscure. I still cannot for the life of me understand this. Can you clarify to me just what happened between Sulin and Nandera on the march to recover the Karakarn after he was captured? And I'll finish. From what I gather, Nandera was sort of like in charge of the maidens during like Sulin's tantrum, and I'm gonna use that word, tantrum. And now that Sulin has returned to Khadin Sor, there was like a throwdown of honor of some sort. Like they're both trying to take, like we see them both trying to take the same orders from Ruark. And Soralia absolutely, hold on, not Soralia. What the hell? Sulin absolutely destroys Nandera. Like, and as a side note, holy shit, was that totally necessary? She's smashing her head into the ground, like, oh my god, that was brutal. And what gets me is that, like, afterward, though, where I get confused, though, is that Sulin still, after that, kind of ostensibly defers to Nandera. And, of course, this is all happening from Perrin's point of view. He doesn't understand, of course, and so I don't understand. What the hell was happening there?
So, as I understand it, and I'm going to put a big asterisk on this because, I don't have a for sure answer here, but as I understood it, that whole, like, beatdown was essentially, like, Sulin losing her temper, and it wasn't supposed to go that far, so she has tow to Nandera. And she's discharging that tow by being subservient to her.
Okay.
by buckling under and letting Nandera
See, at first,
take the lead.
I thought it might have just been like, a throwdown of honor. Like, look, I'm back. I'm taking the lead spot back like I had before. And Nandera going, girl, you screwed up. I'm keeping this. But seeing as how Sulin was still deferring to Nandera afterwards, I can kind of get on board with that. It could just be Sulin, or maybe Nandera decided to offend Sulin clearly, and then Sulin decided to rise to that.
I do think it was like a little bit of like an honor challenge in a way, but that Sulin went way too far in it.
Okay.
And incurred tow in
her resulting tow from going way too far is why she continues to defer?
Yes.
Or part of why she continues to defer. Well, I guess
so to our listeners, if you have an alternate interpretation,
I'd love to hear it.
Post on our Facebook, in the Facebook group. Let us know what you think. This is definitely something that I'm not like super confident on. This is just my interpretation. So
just bashing her head into the rocks on the ground. I was like, damn. Sulin's how old? She's in her 50s, right? She's not a spring chicken.
Yeah. She's definitely in middle age somewhere.
She
can there you go.
15 ways from Sunday. All right. So as far as my miscellaneous notes here, just random points about what we've read. Another portentous viewing from Min. Rand's life depending on Perrin's presence. Not once, but twice.
So, this is one of the things that I was going to discuss in my closing notes is not just one portentous viewing for Min. Min has tons of viewings.
Yeah, I just wrote this one down as I read it.
And obviously the Perrin one is really big, but the one that really stood out to me was her viewings on all the high lords and ladies, and how so many of them are going to die of these, various underhanded, violent ways, and how she's like, I have never seen a room with so much violent death, foretold in it. Like,
again, to gently spoil what's coming, though, we see a lot of that pan out literally at the beginning of the next book.
Yeah, definitely.
So
I'm not disputing that it's not going to come.
I guess
fast.
that could still say portentous, though. Yeah, you're right, though. Yeah,
like it's another sort of sign about how much upheaval is to come, how chaotic some of these societies are going to get when all of their leaders are dying violently.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. So my next point here, the two Aes Sedai, Bera Harkin and Karuna Nachaman. An arrow fired, I wrote down, an arrow fired by the pattern weeks, if not months before this. They were the two Aes Sedai sent from Salidar to the Waste, where they actually, I think it was in the Fires of Heaven. I want to say it was the Fires of Heaven, where they were sent to the Waste, because that's where Rand al'Thor, the Dragon Reborn, was purported to be. Right? To search for Rand. And of course, as we learn, halfway there they heard that he was in Caemlyn. Boom! Counting Alana and Varen, Bera Harkin, Karuna Nachaman, 13 Aes Sedai. I thought that was a really, really deft narrative strike on Jordan's part. Like that was awesome. That was really well done. To belief in order gives strength. Oh, actually, I asked you that one already. I hadn't realized that I actually did write that one down. Oh, Harrenfell goes fishing after that? That's what I wanted to say. I just wanted to say. He decides that he feels young again and he wants to go fishing, of all things, in what is probably the worst drought that planet has seen since the breaking of the world.
Maybe it's symbolic fishing.
What is he fishing for? Like fish flies? Leeches? Like I don't know.
I'm just gonna say I always figured that he was putting up a front, that he was being dry and dusty and not willing to admit that he was going to go find a prostitute because he got all hot and bothered by men.
Oh no, Harrenfell, not you.
I don't know.
Yeah, maybe though.
I can see Robert Jordan getting that cheeky with it.
So you can or you can't?
Because Robert Jordan never approaches sex head on. It's always oblique like that.
He always beats around the bush, if you'll pardon the expression that I'll throw in there. Hey! Kicking rim shot. There you go, Pat. So, let's see here. Oh, small detail I picked up on this time with this reread. Rand, and he's kind of, sort of, totally, like, not fleeing from Camelin as he's thinking, but he writes these 2 letters before he does so. He notes that, and at the end, he notes that Lews Therin's voice has supposedly disappeared. And I paraphrase, as if wearied by his struggle for control. But then we have Morana reading the letter, and then she realizes, she notes to herself that the last 2 lines were written as if by a different hand. And I legitimately got a shiver at that point when I realized what that implies. Did Morana just see Lews Therin's handwriting?
Yep.
Oh. One would assume.
Oh my god, that is so creepy. It's so cool. It's so cool, but so creepy. All right. Oh, Loyal. I want to discuss Loyal really briefly, and his completely inappropriate comments about the shape of Aerith's ears. Like, Jesus, Loyal, calm down, you pervert. God.
Yeah, I mean, are we going to have to, make Ear Hub next? I mean, we got Safe Hand Hub. I feel like Ear Hub is the next logical step here.
Yeah, really. Oh, man. I want to enlist Danny to draw some, like, Ogier and Ludes. Could you imagine? Oh, my goodness.
When we get to the point in Knife of Dreams where they get married, just have the thumbnail.
Imagine a sexy Ogier calendar for every month, right? Oh, my goodness. And, a question for Drew, got that out of the way, and point in the series where I begin to actively dislike Gawain. Yeah, no, I'm actually through all of my miscellaneous thoughts for Lord of Chaos Part 3. I'm ready to do my favorite scenes.
Well, Jared, do you have any closing thoughts?
Nope.
All right.
Cool.
Well, my closing thoughts here before we get into favorite scenes. Obviously, I kind of tagged on to one of yours, Rob, but I just want to say, as a whole, this book remains one of my favorites in the series. And if anything, I think have
it is
more
my
of an
favorite.
Appreciation for it now. It's been, like I said, like 6, almost 7 years since I read this last, and my approach to reading books has changed so much, and the kind of things I look for are different from what I was looking for and how I was engaging the Wheel of Time the last time I read it. And from that perspective, there's even more. Like, this is one of the richest books to mine for writing craft tidbits and, how Robert Jordan shapes his narratives and his character arcs and things like that. There's a lot of subtext in this book. There's a lot thematically to dig into below the surface. It's just, it's got all of those crowning moments of awesomeness throughout it, and masterful bits of writing strewn throughout. So,
yeah.
So on that note, Rob, why don't you kick us off with your 3 favorite scenes?
Oh, I can kick us off with my favorite scenes. Actually, first I want to give an honorable mention. This is my 4th favorite, if you'll permit me that. I wanted to really briefly notice Lan arriving at the camp of the Salidar Aes Sedai. Everything about that scene, its placement at the end of the chapter, the ominous atmosphere, the return and introduction of whom I'm going to call Terminator Lan. Just chef's kiss. So good. So good.
And another thing that when you dig down a layer gets really creepy, because it shows you just how effective the Bond can be at compelling people, and how just how bad a place Lan is in mentally and emotionally, and how willing Morel is to manipulate that to get what she wants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, little detail. Totally forgot to write this down. Little detail in that scene that I hadn't picked up on before. Nothing particularly important for the series. Just so mind-blowingly cool. Maybe it's the 11-year-old in me that just still has this sense of wonder and awe over Al-Lan Mandragor. And there's a moment when he's told to go practice the forms, and he's just flowing through the forms as if in a dance. And these 2 grasshoppers leap off of a plant behind him, and it's described as as if he has eyes in the back of his head. He rotated and sliced them both in half in the middle of his whole like routine there. His shadow boxing with the sword. Holy crap. That guy is he's so intimidating. My goodness. He could beat me up if he had the flu. If he had the Black Plague, he could still put me 6 feet under in about 6 seconds. Oh my god, this guy. So, sorry, now onto my 3 favorite scenes proper. Perrin meeting Davram and Dira Bashir for the first time. And Bashir's whole tough guy attitude coming from all of 5'4". I loved it. And the way he warms up to Perrin after he makes it clear, Perrin's like, just try and take her from me. I dare you. It was just so much tension built in that scene. And then, in my opinion, a lot of tension relieved after that scene. And I can vaguely remember thinking on my first read that this was a moment that I hadn't realized I had been waiting for as much as I was. Really cool scene. Second favorite scene, Perrin reaching us. By the way, all my 3 favorite scenes, they're all Perrin scenes, believe it or not. I swear.
Wow.
Perrin reaching out to the wolves to get their aid in locating the Aes Sedai that captured Rand, and how they ask him, almost as an afterthought, like, oh yeah, by the way, why? And Perrin's like uncertain. Yeah, he's uncertain how they're going to react, so he just kind of says they have caged Shadow Killer. And then the hills in all directions just erupt in howling and fury and challenge. I was so tempted, so pumped at work reading this that I literally went, yes! I was pumping my fist there on the Ironworker machine. I was like, oh, so cool. So cool. And
I'm just gonna say, wait until we get to see that scene in the TV show.
I'm wondering how they're going to get that across.
That line's going to be in there.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And then my favorite scene, my number 1 favorite scene, was Sorelia's declaration of war. And you'll notice something about this scene. Something really, really cool I think Jordan did with his character. And as Rand is originally taken by the Tower Aes Sedai, he's held captive in the basement right before they leave the city in their inn. And he, from his point of view, he's hoping that one of the wise ones who can channel might pass by and feel Saidar being wielded for his shielding. And then we switch point of view directly to Sorelia, who it turns out is in fact passing right outside right at that very moment. And Sorelia, who remarks that she can feel intense channeling from inside that very building, thinks, well, of course, they've been channeling nonstop since they arrived, so nothing out of the ordinary, Yep. At that moment, where Sorelia gave us the faintest glimmer of hope, Jordan just squashes it ruthlessly. And then, 10 or 12 chapters later, shortly after, Sorelia brings that very same glimmer of hope back, literally with her channeled flame, that declaration of war. Chills, my dude, chills.
Nice.
Good choices.
Yeah, those are my 3 favorites.
Jared, what about you?
Well, Rob stole my thunder with Perrin and the Wolves. That's definitely one of my favorite lines in this series. Second, I'd actually say the very first scene with Demandred. I think that's the very first. Yes.
Nice.
This is the first time we're actually at Shale Ghul, right?
Yes. We heard a description of Shale Ghul in The Fires of Heaven, but we haven't actually been there as a narrative scene.
And the first time we get Demandred.
And the first time we meet Demandred, definitely.
And then I would say the other one was at Dumai's Wells, specifically when the Ashaman are appearing, and I think it's Perrin is seeing all of the gateways out of the corner of his vision.
Yeah. That was cool. That was pretty cool.
I would also give an honorable mention to Egwene's scene when she is risen to Amerlin.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, okay.
Damn. Good call. All right, Drew. Favorite scenes, boy?
Okay. So, I'm not going to have Dumai's Wells in my top 3 scenes. And while it is a great scene, there are some things that just, infuriate me about it. Which is what keeps me out. And one of those is actually the Aes Sedai, who the Saladar Aes Sedai, who come and help Perrin, and they make such a big deal out of like, oh, we can't channel yet, we're not in danger, I don't feel in danger yet, blah 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 blah. They are being awful people there. They are intentionally trying to raise the casualty count among the tower coalition under attack there. It does not matter that they did not feel in danger. The oath against using the one power as a weapon includes, except in the last defense of my life or that of another sister. And all those Tower Aes Sedai were down there getting fireballs rained on them and with 40,000 Shido trying to kill them.
Damn.
These Aes Sedai were a bunch of bitches
yeah.
in this scene.
Literally and figuratively. Yeah.
It infuriates me every time I read that.
Damn.
So, my grudge against the Saladar Aes Sedai and that kind of issue I have with the Battle of Dumai as well is because of that. All that aside, my 3 favorite scenes in the book. My 3rd favorite scene is Nynaeve healing specifically Swan and Lyanna.
Oh.
And it's the emotional response we see from Swan and probably even more so Lyanna after that. I love what that says about their respective characters. It's such a powerful moment. And of course it's a moment of awesomeness for Nynaeve, and I do love Nynaeve, so that's always great to have in there.
Yeah.
My 2nd favorite scene is Matt dancing with Betsy Sylvan in Mehron.
Oh my goodness, that's chapter 5, I want to say. A different dance?
A different dance.
Look at me! Holy crap!
Yes.
I'm getting on Drew's level now, everybody. Look at me. Sorry, go ahead.
It's one of those like quiet scenes that I just love the domesticity of that. In this huge series with all these epic battles and moments, Robert Jordan can also write a killer domestic scene. And it's also hilarious in turn and all that.
Because it comes from Matt Coffin. Everything about that scene's so good.
And my favorite scene in the book is Rand establishing the Black Tower.
Okay, so when he was making his little speech there and he was explaining, oh man, I still kind of cringing through that scene a little bit though, just because it's kind of awkward.
And when he breaks out the pins.
He breaks out the pins.
And I love it because it has that subversion of expectation. You would think that him founding the Black Tower would be this like huge momentous occasion, but it ends up being again kind of a quiet scene. Like there's no legions of soldiers lined up. There are no trumpeters and drummers to make a proclamation. It's just Rand gets up, says a few words, and it's those humble beginnings of the Black Tower that are going to be echoed in where the Black Tower is at the end of the series. And I think that makes a really strong counterpoint in Lord of Chaos to how we finish up in A Memory of Light going into the 4th Age.
Oh, yeah. And I definitely want to piggyback on that. As something I said last episode, I think it was in the Lord of Chaos Part 2, where I'm just loving the idea of picturing somebody in the 4th Age listening to these legends and how, of course, they're going to be twisted and changed and magnified. The founding of the Black Tower and what somebody from the 4th Age would say if they could theoretically go back in time and watch what really happened compared to the stories that they're going to be hearing. And it turns out that it's just a dude standing on the back of a wagon at a farm, bunch, a crowd of dirty dudes in front of him that are all sweating profusely, bunch of chickens scratching the dust around their ankles, I love the juxtaposition between what is going to be made about this event and what we actually got to see. It is very, very quaint. I did like that, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that takes us straight into the final draft.
I think it does, my friends.
Rob, all you.
I don't know. Okay, so I've been really, really waiting to get this one out of the way for quite a few weeks now. I'm particularly proud of this one, boys. I brought to the table today another IPA, and this one is a tangerine IPA from Broadhead Brewing Company in Orleans, Ontario. And this was a deliciously fresh, citrusly sweet blend. Citrusy? Yeah, I'll go with citrusy. Sweet blend. And when I bought it, I was thinking about Rand's new best friends, including Galina and Arion and all of the Aes Sedai from the White Tower, who sparked such an awesome relationship and the comfort of so many memories together going forward. This one is called Tight Squeeze.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I did, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, I did. I did it. Bring it.
Oh, man.
I have no words.
Oh.
That's pretty much the reaction I was looking forward to. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody.
Oh. Jared, what do you got for us?
Well, I can't really follow that up, but I'm sticking with my theme of not having a theme.
Okay.
I have a New Belgium 1554. You've probably heard of it.
New Belgium. We had La Folie on the first episode, didn't we?
We did.
Did we?
Yeah.
And we had Air on the Side of Awesome for Calamity, I believe.
It was definitely in a Sanderson episode. Had to be during a Sanderson episode.
It was one of the Reckoners books. It was either Firefight or Calamity, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think they're ending this, actually.
Oh, they better not be.
I feel like...
I know they're ending Abbey. They better not be ending 1554. I will march on down the street to the New Belgium Brewery here in Fort Collins and give them a piece of my mind.
I feel pretty
beer
confident
is one of their absolute best.
that I read this.
It's their only good flagship beer.
Let me just quick Google this.
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna be furious.
Sorry, Drew, you can talk about yours while I'm looking this up. But anyway, this is a pretty famous one from New Belgium. So, like, if you know anything by New Belgium, you probably know 1554.
Yeah. Okay.
Sweet.
So, what I brought today is a beer from River North Brewery in Denver, Colorado. And I have brought a River North beer on before. I brought their barrel-aged Avarice on for one of our Foundry Side episodes. These guys do some of the best stouts and like strong ales in Colorado. And this is another stout. It's an Imperial Stout brewed with coffee. It is 11.9%.
Oh.
So this is,
Oh.
it packs a punch. It is delicious. Sweet malts, really roasty coffee notes. Pretty drinkable though. Definitely dry finish on this. Just altogether a really, really tasty beer. But as I was pushing for most of this episode about kind of the subtext of Lord of Chaos, this beer is called Nightmare Fuel.
Oh yeah, we talked about a lot of Nightmare Fuel in this episode, haven't we?
We did.
I think Halima takes the cake with that.
Yeah. Well, before we finish out the final draft, I do want to give an honorable mention to this brew that I was going originally to bring on. I was at the supermarket about a month ago when we were first going to record this particular episode of the podcast, and I found a New England IPA. Oddly enough, it's just called New England IPA, but it's the name of the brewery that caught my eye. And I was thinking about Taim's epic final line when he gives his ultimatum to all of the Aes Sedai, not making any kind of differentiation between the Tower Aes Sedai or the Rebel Aes Sedai, when he says, "Kneel, Aes Sedai, or you will be knelt." This is from a brewery called The Exchange.
Nice.
So I was going to bring that one on, but then I saw this little ditty there called Tight Squeeze, and I was like, oh my god, I have to do that. That's just so wrong, I have to. So,
yeah.
But honestly, as an aside though, The Exchange may be the best beer I've ever had in my life.
Whoa.
Wow.
I have bought it 4 more times since then in the past month. I went to a house party just like a couple weeks ago, and I brought like 18 of these, and I was just handing them out because this is freaking delicious. The ABV on this one is 7.0, so it's a little stronger as, regular beers go. But the Exchange Brewery, and their one called New England IPA, it is just so delicious. But still can't beat
Very
Tight Squeeze,
nice.
though, can it?
No, it can't. That's so good.
Yeah.
That's one of the best
Thank you.
ever brought into the podcast. That's on a level with like Maiden's Kiss. Like
Yeah, well, I would say it's probably like on the level of like Fearless Youth. That was pretty cool.
Fearless Youth was really good
Yeah.
too.
It is
But
pretty.
yeah, so that brings us to the end of our coverage of Lord of Chaos.
Yeah, it does.
Book 6 of the Wheel of Time. This has been episode 44.
Yep.
And next up, we will be going off, off the beaten path a little bit. We're going to be taking a 1-week break from the Wheel of Time, and this episode is actually going to be a little bit different. Rob is not on the next episode.
Right.
It's just my wife Lauren and me, and we are covering Wraith Squadron by Aaron Alston. It is a book in the X-Wing series of the old expanded universe, now the Star Wars Legends. So if you're a Star Wars fan, you definitely want to check that out. We're covering the whole book in one episode. It's a pretty short book, so it's short and sweet.
What
And
if
it
we
was a
want
lot
to
of fun
start reading Star Wars? Is it a good one to listen to and read along with?
So, it is a good one to start with. If you really want to do it right, you can start with Rogue Squadron and the very first X-Wing book, but you don't have to. Rogue Squadron was written. The first 4 books are written by a different author and tell a complete story, and then Wraith Squadron picks up a new story. It just kind of follows some of the same characters, but not even most of the same characters. Just one major character. So it is a good one that you can start with, and very, very good book. So that said, if you're enjoying our content so far, please check out our Patreon page, patreon.com/inkingoutloud. We're putting up short episodes. I think we're gonna have 2 or 3 short episode Patreon exclusives this month in December. And in fact, probably by the time you're hearing this, there will be 1 or 2 of them up already. You can get access to those there. We have a monthly newsletter that you can check out. You can get early access to our weekly episodes. We got a bunch of fun benefits there, and all of our Patreon proceeds are going toward Pat and Danny, who put in tons of hard work to make our episodes sound good and make our artwork look great. So check that out if you want to support us on Patreon. Otherwise, I am your host, Drew McCaffrey, and with me is my co-host, Rob Santos.
Yep.
And our special guest, Jared Livingston.
The Dawn, Jared Livingston.
Get it right.
That's right. I don't know how you're going to remember each of these.
Yeah. So, as always, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye-bye, everybody.
See you guys.